Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I hope this finds you well. I want to address something that happened in Israel yesterday. So just to give context where we are in the period of time called Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer. So we count from the second day of Pesach, 49 days until Shavuot. So on Pesach, we were freed from Egypt. We were in the desert for 49 days. And then on the 49th day, we received the Torah on Mount Sinai. We believe that on Shavuot, that's when Moshe went up to the top of Mount Sinai, came down with the Ten Commandments, and Jewish people promised this covenant to God that we would obey the rules of God and get to exist on God's earth. So it's a period of growth. It's like with a birthday or a wedding or a big party or a big event. We count up the days. We're so excited. We're so energized and wanting to better ourselves for this big event. So in this period of time in Sfirat HaOmer, it's custom to learn Pirkei Avot, to learn the ethics of the fathers, which are texts in the Mishnah. We talk about ethics, interpersonal relations, lots of things like that, about just bettering our character and bettering ourselves. Each week is associated with a sphira, an aspect of God. Again, this is a Kabbalistic idea. The sphirot being the aspects or the characteristics of God that exist that we try to emulate. So each week is affiliated with a sphira, and we try to tap into that energy each week, growing and moving and becoming better in preparation for getting the Torah on Shavuot. The period of Sfirat HaOmer is also considered a period of semi-mourning. So it's a period of semi-mourning because we learned that Rabbi Akiva's students back in the day, we learned about Rabbi Akiva before, that he had a large amount of students, and 24,000 of them were dying of a plague all throughout the Omer before then. And then on the 33rd day of the Omer, the plague stopped. So it's become custom that we mourn throughout the 49 days, except for on Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day, Lamed Gimel being 33. So the 33rd day of counting the Omer is sort of a respite. People, during the semi-mourning period, we're not supposed to get haircuts, we're not supposed to listen to music, we're not supposed to have parties, we're not supposed to go to weddings, like all these things are not supposed to happen. And all of these things are put on hold, but on Lag BaOmer, we are able, everyone gets haircuts, everyone shaves, everyone does all their things, listens to music, and it's supposed to be a big celebration. We also associate the 33rd day of the Omer with the death of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, a Hasidic, a Kabbalistic leader in Israel. Apparently he died on this day, as well as also shared a lot of Kabbalistic insights on this day as well. So it's become more of a Hasidic tradition. They build fires and sing and dance and celebrate because, again, this is the respite, the reprieve from the period of semi-mourning. So yesterday was Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer, and it's custom now in the north of Israel. People go to Meron, the city that the Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, where his kever, where his grave is, and also where he lived. And so people go up to the north, and they have these huge celebrations. So just to give context, Israel has been on a lockdown for a year and a half. 58% of the country is now vaccinated. Coronavirus infection rates are really low. People are going back to school. People are going back to work. People aren't wearing masks as much. We're coming out of a period of semi-mourning. And this time right now feels like Lag BaOmer. It feels like the reprieve from all the sadness. And so, of course, we can't blame people for wanting to go out and be happy. But what happened, so this is in the north of Israel, there were apparently 100,000 people who came to this celebration of Lag BaOmer on Mount Meron in the north of Israel. And apparently in some sort of stampede or crush of people, 50 people died out of 100,000. And I'm really upset about this. I know I'm not the only one. I'm really upset about this because there's no reason that this needed to happen. They weren't fighting terror. They weren't in a war. No one was ill. This was people stampeding upon people. And there's so many weird connections. Lag BaOmer is supposed to be the respite, the day of release from the sadness. And yet this event happens on Lag BaOmer. We also learned that Rabbi Akiva's students, there was a plague on them because they were not acting in a way, they were not honoring the commandment of Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, to love your fellow as yourself. They were not acting in ways that befitted Torah scholars. And the people who caused this event to happen in northern Israel were not acting in a way that befitted Torah scholars. If you saw pictures or videos, it was ultra-Orthodox Jews that mostly go to this. I mean, that was the entirety of the people that were there. And we get so frustrated. We see shows like Unorthodox or this documentary called One of Us, all of these kinds of things that portray ultra-Orthodox Jews in such negative ways. And we're like, no, like this is just one small group. This isn't representative of the whole. And yet that's what everyone knows about Jews. They don't see all the different levels that we are. They don't see all the different types and things that we are. They just see this specific kind. And that is not good. This week's parsha, we talk about the commandment to sanctify God's name, to be a kiddush Hashem, and the prohibition of being a Hilul Hashem, a desecration of God's name. And this news coming out of Israel in a time where there's so much tragedy elsewhere, where there's so many other bad things happening. This is the last thing that needs to be out in the news. It was not people fighting against someone else. This was people not acting in a way that befits any humans, let alone Jews, let alone Torah scholars, let alone anyone. It is unacceptable, and it has struck something in me. It has made me feel so incredibly ill, and I wish I could discuss this with you all, because just reflecting, it's how strange that this happens on this day that's supposed to be a reprieve, that's supposed to be a rest from the morning, and this horrible thing happens. And it's the week that we're talking about being not being a desecration of God's name, of being proud of being Jews and sharing that in a positive way. I'm really at a loss. And there are other things we could talk about in the parsha, but I just felt like it was not right to not address what happened. So I hope you guys can discuss, maybe make some sense out of it, or bring some new insights. But I just wanted to share how I was feeling, and to give you context. We're still in the period of counting of the Omer. We're still building up to accepting the Torah on Shavuot, which is at the end of May. So we still, of course, we can always make amends and change and get better. But this sort of thing is it's really jarring. God willing, I'll be here next week with something happier to speak about. Thanks so much.